So, what's the meaning behind The Weeknd's False Alarm music video? Let me explain. I want to try something new today, so I'm explaining the music video and not just the song for False Alarm by The Weeknd. The Weeknd comes out with some amazing music videos, and I'm going to be explaining more of them, as well as maybe possibly in the future linking all of them together to show you the story that they tell. Subscribe for that, and stick around for the end of this video so that I kind of sum up and wrap up what the entire music video is about. But we're going to start going piece by piece, noting each of the important moments in the video itself. It's super confusing, there's a lot going on there, very interesting, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it with you now. So first thing that we notice about this video is that it's shot in first person, and that's the point of view, right? Why would they shoot it in first person? Well, first of all, based on the way that his hands kind of stick into the frame, or the way that he cocks his gun in the frame, it reminds us a lot of a first person shooter game. These games come under scrutiny a lot because some people think that they cause children to be more violent. Well, this is a very violent video with lots of terrible things happening. There's people dying, blood spraying, things like that. But The Weeknd, from his perspective, does some things that don't necessarily line up with that violent mindset. So I think that the first person exists to show us how he's not completely bought in to what the other criminals are doing around him. He's not just doing this for the joy of killing other people. Anytime he kills somebody, it's in self-defense. Admittedly, he is robbing a bank, which casts some moral doubt on that, of course, but there are reasons for that as well. Robbing the bank is symbolic of going after, quote, ill-gotten gain. He's trying to get rich and get this money using cutthroat methods, right? And he's willing to break the rules. Now, among the criminals that he's working with, there's one who wears a red skull mask. This person is particularly terrible. As they're walking out of the bank, they've got the money, they've got the hostage, everything that they need. He just shoots one of the people who is kind of kneeling there in the bank, one of the innocent bystanders. He just shoots him in the head and keeps walking. There's absolutely no reason for this, and this shows us that there's something very wrong with this person killing other people for fun. All right, so then they grab a hostage, and what is the purpose of her? Well, she's a hostage. She's just there to keep them safe and keep the police from shooting them or blowing up their getaway car. But if you take a closer look at her, she's probably symbolic of seeming innocence and vulnerability. She's a thin girl wearing a short skirt, which all kind of comes together, and she's attractive too, right? So it all kind of comes together to show that she's a very innocent, vulnerable person, not the kind of person you would expect to hurt other people. So as they're making their getaway, a couple of things happen. One, several of the robbers are shot by police. So the group that starts out at about 7 people strong is very quickly whittled down. This is risky business, and they're willing to take risks to get the very large gain that they hope to get, which is a lot of money that they've stolen. It's several duffel bags full of just stacks of money. But there's also infighting. A couple of times they start to like push each other around, and at the very end one of them tries to kill Abel because of something he's mad at him about, which we'll get into in a second. Suffice it to say, these aren't nice people. So as their large vehicle is pulling away, they kill a couple of cops. They use the hostage as sort of like a bullet blocker just so the cops don't shoot back at them. Several cops die as a result. And then we see that their getaway plan is to have this other vehicle pull up alongside their car to jump into it and then to pull away and hit while this vehicle crashes, and effectively they disappear and the cops don't know what kind of a vehicle to look for. Well, it's Abel's job to try to toss their money into that getaway car. He tosses a bag or two, and then instead of tossing the other bag that they have left, he tosses the hostage female into it. Now, why does he do this? Do they really need another hostage? Well, they're making their escape. It might be nice to have the hostage, but more than anything, she's a liability who could slow them down. So it would be wiser to get rid of her. But we see what happens next. The driver of their first vehicle sticks the car into drive, just leaves it so that it'll keep driving, which means that he's willing to just let it crash there empty. If Abel hadn't thrown the girl into the other vehicle, then she would have died as well. So we see this sort of redeemable act on his part where he's willing to save her at the expense of some of the money. And this means that he's a little bit different from the other robbers he's working with, because one of the 3 remaining robbers gets mad at him, starts pointing a gun at him, hits him, to show that he even asks, like, what the F? Why did you save this girl instead of the money? So Abel's conflicted. He's trying to do the right thing, sort of, while he's robbing a bank and killing police officers. It shows at least that there's this spark of human decency left inside of him. Well, when the guy's about to kill Abel, the girl returns the favor and shoots that guy with a gun that he didn't notice. What does this tell us about the girl? Well, she's not so innocent as we thought, and she's willing to get her hands dirty to help other people or to keep herself safe. Well, you might think that she's returning in the favor and that she was just trying to help somebody else out, right? Well, keep in mind that Abel did save her, and this other guy is mad at her and wishes that she were money, not a nice guy. And earlier in the video, he looks at her, kind of shoves her around in a way that makes her seem very uncomfortable. So it's not a good idea for her to stick with him. She early on realizes that that guy, the Red Skull guy, is not the one that she wants to be with. And this is the same Red Skull guy from earlier. So he's the one who killed the innocent person, and now he just wants the money, and he's mad at his teammate Abel for not getting more of the money. Well, after she kills that guy, Abel's safe for the time being. They look ahead, they notice that the driver of the car is actually dead due to some bullet that came through the window, so their car is going very fast with no driver. Immediately they crash, and they wake up a few minutes later. Both of them are bloody. The girl seems to be overall fine though, but Abel has a large metal shard through his chest. He's probably going to die. Well, the girl still has handcuffs on from earlier in the video. He gives her the keys and she unlocks them. She gets a little bit closer to him, looking like, "Are you okay?" And she seems to actually care about him for a moment, and she might help him to get out of there. Well, as she's doing it, her right arm twitches a little bit, moves forward, and as soon as she grabs onto that money bag, she darts backwards really quickly before he can grab her, and starts to make her getaway. Abel raises his gun as if though to shoot her, decides it's not worth it, and she makes it out. So this girl isn't as innocent as we thought. Now, she had done something nice for him earlier. She saved his life, that was probably out of self-preservation, and she comes closer to him, looking as if though she cares about how he's doing, but in the end, it's just about the money for her as well. Now, she doesn't owe him a lot of favors. He did, after all, just kidnap her and use her as a human shield while fighting the cops, but he did also save her. He showed that redeemable spark, and she chooses to completely ignore that and makes a hefty profit as a result. I'm not condemning her for not helping out the person who just tried to kill her, but I do think it's interesting that this symbol of innocence and vulnerability doesn't seem to actually care about anybody else either. And she also is breaking the law too by taking that money. It's kind of implied that she's not going back to the cops with it. She's going out on her own, and she's going to keep that money for herself. Well, Abel looks down at a cross that's hanging around his neck. He looks at it for a second. It's kind of a symbol that's been happening in the videos from this album so far. In Starboy, there were a couple of crosses. And he seems to think about it for a moment. Then he looks in the mirror. We see that it is indeed Abel. And then he raises a gun to his throat and shoots himself. The cross is probably the most confusing part, but it definitely means something to him. It could be about how he was raised, maybe it involved a lot of religion or a lot of Christianity, but it's something that he's struggling with now. And maybe the fact that he showed that redeemable spark while he was doing something terrible fits in with this presence of the cross, in that maybe he is struggling with the good and the bad side of him, and that cross represents the good side, while his actions, for the most part, are representing the bad side, and his desire for money as well, representing that bad side too. But by staring at the cross, reminding himself of what it means, that sort of that faith and that desire to be a better person, suggests that at the very end, he kind of acknowledges his sins and his failures up to this point. And since he couldn't get what he wants, he knows what's coming. He knows that he's either going to go to jail for a very long time or he's going to bleed out there. We can hear the police sirens in the background, so if he doesn't bleed out, he is going to jail for a very long time. And so he commits suicide, almost as a way of giving up. So overall, what is False Alarm about? Well, literally, it's this guy who's robbing a bank, has some moral conflictions, saves a girl. She sort of saves him out of self-preservation, but in the end leaves him to bleed out in the back of a car while she gets away with the money that he was trying to steal in the first place. She turns out to be corrupted just like him. This song could be about the music industry. The girl could symbolize the music industry and how it seems kind of harmless on the outside, but once you really get into it and you start to, quote, sell your soul to it, you start to find out that it wants more of you, and then when you're kind of washed up, it's going to just leave you behind, even if you thought you were in control. The suicide could be about giving up on goodness and hope in life. It could be that once he realizes that even this image of vulnerability and innocence is actually corrupt as well, that he realizes there's really nothing left to live for, especially after all the mistakes that he's made. But what I think False Alarm really is all about is about humankind's brokenness, and the fact that a lot of people are willing to be corrupted by things like greed or pride or power. Even this picture of innocence and vulnerability, the person we would least expect to want to do a terrible thing like shoot somebody or steal money from other people is corrupted in the end because of what she wants. Bank robbers, this young woman, whoever the person may be, there are certain things that appeal to everybody and that make people want to corrupt their ideals. So in the end, what Abel may be saying is that even though we look at him up there and we see the mistakes that he sometimes makes, it's almost as if though he's saying that given the right circumstances and situations, his fans, the people who think that they're incorruptible and that they always would do the right thing, that even given the right circumstances, they would make mistakes as well, the same kinds of mistakes that he makes. It's almost as if though the money is sort of this metaphor for his career as a musician. Maybe people accuse him of selling out or selling his soul to the music industry, stuff like this, and the money might represent that career. And he's saying that even you, when you have this circumstance or the situation that gives you the opportunity to make this decision, you would do the same thing that I did, he's saying. And having been on the inside, he commits suicide at the end because he knows how terrible it can be. Now, he hasn't committed suicide in real life, but it's almost as if though maybe he's saying that a little piece of him is dead inside when he looks at this stuff. And I think that really ties back in with what he says in Starboy, where he calls himself a, quote, mother effing Starboy, and kind of hints at the emptiness of the celebrity lifestyle. False Alarm is deep, and I think it is an incredible song. I think conversations about it are going to continue, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. I've got more videos coming out about The Weeknd, his music videos, his songs, so don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and I'll talk to you next time.